What's up, fight fans? Gabe Varga here, 5-time pro kickboxing world champion, 2-time former Glory featherweight world champion, and current Bellator athlete. Today we're going to take a moment and talk about visualization. This question gets asked at the end of all the seminars I go to. People want to know if you visualize, how important it is, and why you do it. So we're going to take a moment, talk about that, and talk about the specific methods I use leading up to my fights. Let's get right into it. So I think visualization is one of the key aspects to being the best fighter you can be when you get into the ring. And one of the reasons it's so important, specifically as a North American fighter, is experience. That mental visualization can give you maybe not the physical experience of competing, but it can give you the mental side. And as a North American, we are going to be always fighting against foreign athletes who just have so many more fights than us. We can't compete with the Europeans and the Asians. They start fighting so young, they can fight every week if they want, and by the time we transition from amateur to pro and we have 15, 20, 30 fights, and then you put up 4 or 5 really good pro fights, and then all of a sudden you're at a high level fighting for pro world titles. Maybe you're in Glory or something like that if you've done a spectacular job. All of a sudden you're against these opponents whose experience level is just daunting compared to yours, and you're not going to be able to match that within your career. But what you can do is use that visualization, go through the moments in your mind, and make sure that you understand the way it feels when you get in the ring more often than once every couple months or once every half year. That was for me. I was fighting once a year, twice a year, and you get back in the ring and you just sort of forget about that massive amount of nerves, and you don't get to be the best version of yourself. So using visualization, especially in that off time, those big gaps between fights, are really going to help you be a better version of yourself, the best version that you could possibly be, which is what we're always striving for. Now, for me specifically, it's not so much getting in the ring that is the part that really scares me. I've done that enough now. Once I get in the ring, autopilot takes over. I'm usually good to go. But the part leading up for me that is really hard is basically when I have to start packing my bags in the hotel room to head off to the venue, right up to the point where I touch gloves with my opponent right after the bell rings. All that time in there, I'm not on autopilot, and I'm basically just waiting to go to battle. But you can't do anything to speed that time up. So whenever I get a rush of nerves, if I'm at home a couple weeks before the fight, even a month before the fight, I take 5 minutes and I close my eyes. And I just take 5 quiet moments for myself to sit down and really, really think about each of those moments that scares me. And for me, that's being in the hotel, my alarm goes off, and I know I have to start packing up all my gear because we're going to be leaving for the venue in about half an hour. So I start right there. I close my eyes and I go, all right, I'm packing up my bag. I'm heading down to the venue. And I just wait there for the knock on my door from my cornerman. And when that knock comes, they walk in. We're going to go down to the lobby together. And what I really found was hard to deal with was seeing my opponent for the first time when we're about to take a bus together to the venue. And sometimes you even see him beforehand. When I was on Glory 32, fighting Sergey Adamchuk to get my belt back, we were going down on the elevator, and we just both happened to end up at the same time going down to the lobby. And it's this awkward exchange where you don't really want to talk to each other at that point because you're about to go off and do 5 hard rounds of battle. So you're kind of sitting there knowing, oh, I don't really want to talk to this guy, but I should say hi. So you make eye contact, kind of smile awkwardly. So I'd like to imagine the first time I see my opponent and make sure that when it happens, it's not something that's a surprise. It doesn't come out of the blue. I'm prepared for it. So I imagine first packing up my bags, second my cornerman knocking at the door, and then third making my way down to the lobby and seeing my opponent for the first time. After that, I imagine the trip from the hotel to the stadium, and then the gap of time in between, which could be anywhere from an hour to 5 hours before I can get my hands wrapped, where you're just kind of hanging out and you really want to get going, but you just have to wait your turn. And then I imagine getting my hands wrapped, which is never fun because you're just basically putting on your armor, just kind of like going to war. You're putting on your armor, you're getting ready for battle, but you can't do anything aside from sit there and just let somebody wrap your hands and think about basically what's coming up in an hour. And then you can finally start doing your warm-up. But in your warm-up, you know you're going to feel fatigued. That happens all the time. Top level fighters mention it all the time. They're like, I've never had a warm-up where I felt good. And that's the same for me. I always feel exhausted and fatigued. So I make sure I do that in my mind as well. I play out those moments. I'm going to go, oh, okay, I'm feeling good, but not feeling as good as I do in the ring, or sorry, in training. And that's something that's going to be expected, and I'm not going to be shocked by it. And then from there, I imagine walking from the locker room, the TV producers come and get me, and they walk me out to the staging area. And then once I'm at the staging area, there's a little wait until I get to walk out to the ring. And I imagine, oh, okay, I'm going to have somebody cheering for me, or I'm going to have the crowd booing against me. And I go through both those scenarios as well. And then I imagine getting in the ring, and I imagine them announcing my name, raising my hand up, and then I imagine the stare down against my opponent, and then when the bell rings, touching gloves, and then I stop. And I don't go any further than that, because all the prep for actually in the ring has been done in the gym. That's the training time you put in. But the visualization is dealing with anything else, I believe, that will really make you nervous on fight day and won't allow you to be your best version during that time. That's really what you want. You want to put the time in the gym to be the best version of yourself on fight day. And the mental aspect will help with that. And I believe that 5 minutes, anytime butterflies arise in your stomach, is the ideal way to deal with it. Sometimes I do close my eyes and I sit down and I'm not nervous and I just go through it anyway. And I make a habit of it. And by the time the fight days come, I've done this somewhere between 3 and 4 times per week for 5 minutes each time. And I'm that much more comfortable with the experience. And that's going to, again, make me a better fighter when I step into the ring. Thanks for joining this week and learning about visualization. Please comment, share, like, subscribe. Send me messages, ask questions. I want to get as much information out to others as possible. Train hard, and I'll see you next week.